Hey guys, today's video is about how to find inspiration when you don't know what to draw or paint. I think most of you have experienced this situation in which you've prepared everything for the perfect art day. You have all your favorite materials around you and you are eager to start. But then you sit in front of a blank canvas or paper and you have absolutely no idea what to do now. In the worst case scenario, you might sketch a couple of things, but you hate them and then you don't feel like drawing or painting anything ever again. Okay, I might have depicted that situation a little bit exaggerated, but maybe you might have experienced it in one or another way. In fact, I have the same feeling from time to time too, especially if I have built up a lot of pressure to create something outstanding or special, or if I have to create a huge amount of works, like the series of 7 drawings that I made for my patrons this month. I did overcome my lack of inspiration because I have a couple of tricks that I do that pretty much always work and that I want to share with you. Before we start, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so that you can never miss a new art video from me again. Also, if you are wondering which materials I use, just look down in the description of the video. You will find everything that I use along with links how to purchase it. Tip number 1. The inspiration folder. The most important thing for me is to keep a growing inspiration and reference folder on my laptop. Whenever I stumble upon an inspiring photo or artwork on Instagram or on the internet, I immediately save it. On Instagram, I use the save function, and then when I'm back on my laptop, I just open the picture from Instagram and save it in my folder, so that I have everything in one place and can scroll through it whenever I need it. I also sort everything by subjects. For example, I have folders for artworks and photography for inspiration, but I also have a huge collection of reference photos of people, landscapes, flowers and insects. So whenever I don't know what to draw, I open a couple of inspiration and reference pictures and create a drawing based on them. Tip number 2. What's your plan? Also, it can be beneficial to know for which occasion you create your artwork for. It's not always necessary to know what you intend to do with your artwork before you start, but I find it helpful. For example, if I want to do an oil painting, I need to make a digital mock-up before I begin to paint. So setting up my workspace for painting with oils doesn't really make sense if I haven't done a reference photo yet. Or if I want to paint right away, at least I need a reference photo or something like a still life that I can place beside my canvas to paint from. I need to have something at least. Painting without any kind of reference is impossible for me, and my artworks always look better with references. If I know for which occasion I create an artwork, I feel it gets a bit easier to actually make it. For my Patreon illustrations, for example, I know that they will always have the same format and medium, so I don't have to spend time deciding which format I should use. For a gallery painting, I usually create more elaborate pieces like oil paintings. So before I start, I first need to build or buy a canvas and then underpaint it. Sometimes limitations and restrictions make things easier, as if you have infinite choices, which can paralyze you. Also for me, it helps to know how I want my artwork to look like. If I want it to be more realistic, I need high quality reference photos, and I have to dedicate a lot of time for the artwork to look like that. Keeping in mind how much time I will need helps me to plan better and to decide if I want to even do it. For my illustrations, for example, I don't need to dedicate as much time, and they are very quick and fun to do. I usually need 1 or 2 hours for the initial drawing, and then a couple of hours for the coloring process. So when I'm not inspired, I just try to make an interesting looking sketch that I slowly perfect until I am happy. Then I photocopy it and trace it onto my watercolor paper. So the initial inspiration period is only happening while I create the sketch, and the second time maybe when I choose the color palette before I start my watercoloring process. So basically, you don't need to be inspired all the time, only while you create your drawing. Now, when you use the inspiration folder method, it should be easy to create an artwork. Tip number 3. Pick a theme. For me, it helps to find a theme that I want to depict in my artworks. I know that I love painting and drawing flowers, butterflies and portraits of women, but that alone doesn't spark any inspiration. On the contrary, I rather feel bored by depicting the same subjects over and over again, even though I love them. So in order to feel inspired, I scroll through my various inspiration folders on my laptop to get ideas for unusual color palettes, models, clothing and flowers. I collect both reference photos that I can draw from and art of photography from other artists that I love. For my Patreon illustrations, I revisited the Art Nouveau theme, because even though I already created a couple of artworks inspired by this style, I still felt that there's so much new to discover and learn. Therefore, if you have a couple of art movements that you adore, it could be a great way to pick one of them and create artworks with a certain style or design element inspired by it. An even easier way to find ideas is to research mythological creatures like mermaids, fairies, yokai, ghosts, queens, and so on. Or you learn about the fashion style of a remote culture or tradition. Of course, monthly prompts like Inktober are also a good way to find inspiration. There's an infinite amount of themes and subjects you could create a series of. For me, when I pick a series, I can incorporate my favorite subjects in a novel way, therefore depicting butterflies, beautiful women and flowers, instead of being boring, suddenly becomes super exciting and challenging. Tip number 4. Do it! For me, it helps to just start drawing from a reference photo. I like to draw faces the most, so usually I look through my reference photos and start drawing a portrait, even if I'm not inspired and not exactly sure what I want to depict. After I have finished the portrait portion, in general, my mood is lifted and my motivation comes back, which helps to feel inspired as well. Then, as a second step, I try to continue the portrait by adding the body portion to it. For that, again, I go through my picture folder and find the fitting body for my portrait. And so on. I start with the face and then I add piece after piece. When I get stuck, I look until I found a reference that matches the piece I want to draw, which usually resolves the problem. Especially with hands, I don't take any chances and I look directly for the right photograph to draw from. Tip number 5. You don't always need inspiration. I know that sounds silly, but depending on which approach you choose to create an artwork, inspiration is not always required. When I do my digital compositions in Photoshop, I simply combine photos that I think look good without having any idea in mind. I play around with different photographs, rotate and crop them, change the color, add other things to them, alter the face of my model, and stick together a completely new image from a variety of sources. I think it is even easier sometimes to not have an idea in mind, because then it gets more difficult to find the right photographs and to create a digital composition. So if you don't use Photoshop, you can translate this method to other areas of life as well. For example, you could surround yourself with things that inspire you. I like to have plants, skulls, dolls, flower bouquets, washi tape, stickers and things with patterns like fabric or jewelry around me. Then, when I don't know how I can improve a sketch, I look around and I see a pretty pattern that I can use on my drawing. Or you can just arrange the objects you like until it looks good and then you can draw that. It's boring to just draw an apple or your own foot because there's nothing interesting around you. Many of these little things are also cheap and you can buy them in dollar stores, so you don't need to spend a ton of money on them. Also, colors are important. Whenever I have to buy something like a stapler, for example, and it comes in a boring color and a color that I like, I buy the fancy one because looking at it reminds me of colors that I can use for my art. But you don't even need to buy extra stuff at all if you don't want to. Drawing outside in a restaurant, cafe, garden or park is super inspiring and you are forced to draw things that you normally wouldn't. It's inspiring and gets you out of your comfort zone at the same time. So I hope you found these tips helpful. They were the first that came to mind and that I always use when I don't know what to draw. Let me know in the comment section what you do when you need to find inspiration. I also have an important announcement to make. I just started Leoba's Painting Challenge, an art contest that I will hold from now on every month for my patrons. The first place will receive a little art surprise gift box and the official winner certificate with date, my signature and my official signature stamp. I will also select multiple other winners, which will be shared on my various social media accounts on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Based on the entries, I will select one or more winners and there's no limit on how many patrons can win. My painting challenge is open for absolutely every skill level, and even if you're not an artist but my patron, you can participate. All traditional media is allowed. Painting, drawing, sculpting, crafting, collage, knitting, baking, sewing and so on. Everything that you can do with your own hands that fits the theme. The October theme is spooky, by the way. Your entry doesn't need to be a masterpiece either. Something funny or uniquely different can be as wonderful as an elaborate painting. And because the challenge will be held every month, there's a pretty good chance that even the absolute beginner can win. You can find everything you need to know about Leoba's Painting Challenge on my website. Links are in the description of the video. So maybe you are inspired by now, but you still need a couple of painting and drawing techniques to realize your ideas, I would guess. Join me on Patreon and get access to over 60 painting videos and tutorials about watercolors, oils, color pencils and mixed media techniques. Depending on which reward tier you would like to join, you will receive beautiful art gifts from me every month, embellished fine art prints, original watercolor illustrations and even your own custom oil painting. You can also join my monthly painting live stream in which I answer all your questions. I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, share your feedback in the comment section, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next one. Bye bye!